with the Stanley Kubrick story.
Alex Delarge, right?
Right.
Stanley Kubrick has always been one of the most influential filmmakers to date. Even when each of his movies are a completely different genre, he's still able to bind our hearts together with his movies. One of the many reasons is his use of characterization. No matter which genre of movies, it's one of his strongest suits. As Mike Broderick said in the Kubrick Legacy, Kubrick's profound and singular vision resolutely returned to explore many defining aspects of the human condition. No matter its man-apes, slaves, wars, sexual desires, fears, military and nuclear genocide. That's why he has such a lasting appeal as a major creative intellect and artist. Today we're gonna explore his characterization in all of his movies. What is unique and great about them, but also what do they have in common? War, a common aspect in most of his movies, even down to his first film, Fear and Desire. According to the statement by Richard Rambus in Kubrick's Man, Kubrick's principal interest in this story is the vexation rendering of hierarchical male relationship in the intensified settings of the military during war. Keeps raising the question of what is to expect of soldiers as men. Like in Full Metal Jacket, a rare war story evacuated of melodrama, trying to work through a more fundamental line of inquiry. How do you convert a teenage boy into a Marine, the most hardcore of all American fighting men? And yes, both Joker and Gomer are changed from who they once were from the beginning of the movie, as war keeps stripping their humanity away. An example from Kubrick of how war affects everyone, with Full Metal Jacket showcased it in the most negative way. Same as Fear and Desire. That also tries to explore the soldiers losing their humanity. Not as well as Full Metal Jacket, as it has more moments of explaining why would they lose their humanity, but there is an attempt. And on the flip side, we got Paths of Glory, where Colonel Deck still maintains his humanity at the end, refusing to bring his men back to the battlefield, even after exposing the general who frames the other soldiers. The movie is able to expertly craft that, to the point even the most minor of characters receive the challenge of humanity, and how they will still maintain their own values. Change from horny from seeing a girl, to realizing after this song they are going to go back. But at least they still have each other as they sing the song together. In The Philosophy of Stanley Kubrick by Jared J. Abrams, Kubrick's take on the absurd moral heroes present wishful thinking. Wedged between human treachery and cosmic frivolity, the genuinely good. The absurd takes a toll, blurring or reversing the distinction between good and bad. As I mentioned before for Paths of Glory, where Colonel Dex's choice doesn't change anything at the end. And Spartacus, where Spartacus maintaining being good still doesn't change anything at the end, while showing the humanity of the people on Spartacus' side. But at least they are still able to maintain their humanity even during war. What Kubrick wants us to maintain even in the toughest of times. Same thing happens to Mandrake in Doctor Strangelove. Despite dealing with a potential nuclear war situation, Mandrake is still able to keep his cool and try to stop it. Even being held at gunpoint, he's still trying to be the better person. Unlike his general, Ripper, who lost his mind and humanity to the point of committing suicide. Despite that, nuclear war happened anyways. But doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Those are Kubrick ways of challenging humanity even in difficult situations, being exaggerated by war. But war isn't the only way Kubrick challenges humanity. From Critical Insights, Stanley Kubrick by Peter J. Bailey, dehumanization is frequently Kubrick's preface to a surrounding of the whole into parts of individuals in their fragmented personalities and divided loyalties, shown in the first scene of Full Metal Jacket, that will lead to the character's downfall. But even in lower stake things, Eyes Wide Shut foreshadow the dehumanization figure that the audience encountered with Bill Harford at the private orgy. And more explicit is in Killer's Kiss. Only after Davy kills the gangster with a mannequin, The threat to Davy's future happiness with Gloria is destroyed. Not finding any suggestion that the Rapallo's passion for her was any more real than a mannequin, making way for a happy ending that gleefully rejects the North convention employed throughout the film. Bill's humanity in Eyes Wide Shut loses more and more after knowing his wife Alice isn't satisfied with him and wanted to cheat on him, leading to him thinking Alice might already cheated. Therefore, he goes to the orgy party, as more of his humanity is being removed. But at the end, he's able to overcome it, with Bill and Alice forgiving each other from potential cheating, maintaining their humanity, as well as an attempt in Killer's Kiss. After Davy's first kill that loses some of his humanity, Davy tries to leave for good, as he still struggles with that decision, only for Glory to come in and shows that everything is alright, that he hasn't lost himself. Those two movies are Kubrick challenging the humanity and characters, but still leads to a satisfying outcome. And of course, there's a flip side in any Kubrick project. Take Jack in The Shining as an example. In Depth of Field, Stanley Kubrick film and the Uses of History by Jeffrey Cox, James Dyrek, and Glenn Perusik. The Shining is a commentary on human male violence, personified by the writer, father, and husband Jack Torrance. Kubrick intensified King's theme of family dysfunction, child abuse, and violence, and he united the forces of ghosts, alcoholism, and mental illness that haunted Jack. Kubrick is using The Shining to restate a favorite theme. There's something inherently wrong with the human personality. There's an evil side to it. The movie corrupts Jack and intensifies his brutal, violent, and abusive nature, losing all of his humanity as the movie goes on, with that killing him at the end, as he is trapped inside a hotel with ghosts playing around his mind. It's tragic, but it's paved around his character very well, with Kubrick's way of characterization. Put them in unique situation to challenge their humanity. You lost yourself or you lose it. Same can be applied in 2001 A Space Odyssey, with David turning from a loving father into a person who just wants to explore power, looking over the earth as an infant. After some science mumbo jumbo, I wish it was more character related. There's still Lolita, where Hermit kills Qualley in cold blood, which is something Hermit will never do in the first place, because Qualley is still his beloved Lolita, even though Lolita doesn't even like him and just wants his money. I wish the character decision actually leads to that, instead of making Humber having emotional maturity of a 10-year-old. But that is still Kubrick's attempt of a dehumanization of how far can a lover go. Then there's A Clockwork Orange, perhaps the most blatant when it comes to Kubrick dissecting humanity. Even in a critical companion to Stanley Kubrick by Elsa Columbani. While Kubrick was no stranger exploring questions regarding politics and violence, Clockwork marks a departure in terms of Kubrick's manipulation of cinematic form and techniques to explore these topics. Because Alex is a horrible person that the movie doesn't even try to hide it, who enjoys torturing people. Only until the movie forces humanity on him that removes his violent nature, making him understand what it's like to know people's feelings. With the movie takes that away, that he's back to his violent self, explaining you can't just force someone to change. Case when Alex is still the inhuman self at the very end who loves violence. They have to go through a journey that challenges and changes their humanity naturally, both positive and negative. In the way Kubrick tried to explore humanity with characterization. Even more singular character focus is in Barry Lyndon, where the movie solely focuses on Barry, who has his humanized moments of caring for others, but him wanting wealth and fame consume him more and more. And the moments of humanity he got later in the movie doesn't compare to the amount he got for the dehumanization moments. In Stanley Kubrick, a narrative and stylist analysis by Mario Falsetto. Although he is still relatively a young man at this point in the narrative, the strapping youth of the early scenes has disappeared. He has been replaced by an opportunistic, shallow, and lifeless dandy. There are scenes filled with genuine feelings in the second half of the film, in which the audience can see traces of the young Barry, but they are mere traces. Barry Lyndon is no longer Redmond Barry. He is an artificial creation of a decadent society. Causes his ultimate downfall. Even if his glimmer of humanity allows him to spare his stepson, Barry Lyndon is no longer who he used to be. And the bad thing he did eventually comes back and consumes him. A movie Kubrick used to tell us do not be consumed by the bad side of humanity. With the last movie in Kubrick's filmography I haven't mentioned, The Killing, which is about a criminal Johnny trying to commit a heist, and he failed at escaping at the end because his dehumanized action got punished with too much money in his bag, which that's not how physics works. But that's the idea Kubrick tried to communicate, as one-sided as it is. So after breaking down all his movies, what does Kubrick want to tell us about the characters overall? As you see, in Stanley Kubrick Essays on His Films and Legacy by Gary D. Rhodes, is this constant issuing of new script pages a simple case of script changes, or an actual example of Kubrick's ongoing and absolute control over the script itself? Even over the entire production, similar his desire to visualize composed scenes in the moment, suggests perhaps a director who is so thoroughly prepared that he's able to consider the alternative in an instant. He knows what he is doing in all his movies, telling us to maintain who we are even in the most desperate of situations, even if we might fall, and sometimes we actually might. We should still do our best to maintain who we are, during war, or just every day. That aspect defines some of Kubrick's most interesting and well-written characters, when they are portrayed consistently with what Kubrick presents them as. How does character and humanity go hand in hand? You can't just force it to happen, or else the character would learn nothing, compared to an actual journey. What Kubrick wants to tell us. In Embodied Art, Bodily Meaning in the Cinema of Stanley Kubrick by Martin Cool Garnett, when a human or fictional being experiences a particular mental event, this experience is seen as a change of the subject's state from an initial stage, which is the negation of the mental event, to a resultant stage, which is its confirmation. His understanding and execution of how humanity should be portrayed, most of the time, is why he's such a legendary director. His understanding of characters and how humanity should be portrayed in them, allowing us to take valuable lessons from their actions. That's one of the ways I rank his movies, how he portrayed the characters and their humanity. And I might be the only one with this take. Kubrick is a better writer than he gave himself credit for.